Hello, everybody. This is Chuck Everson, and welcome again to another edition of the Big East Rewind with my co-host, as always, Dr. Sonny Spera. Sonny, how are you today?
Chuck, doing great. Looking forward to today. This is going to be exciting.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it's the first NBA world champion that we have on the program, who's also a member of the Big East. One of our Big East brethren. As we do with the Big East Rewind, we talk to all the older guys. I wouldn't call Caron an old guy, not like us, but
No.
but he did play. He played at UConn between 2000 and 2002.
It's our first Husky. It's our first Husky on the show. Yes.
Came out early, was the number 10 pick, and is a NBA world champion with the 2011 Dallas Mavericks. So can't wait to talk to Caron Butler. Caron, welcome to the show today.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure and honor. Thanks for having me on. How you guys doing?
We're good.
Doing great.
We're good. Any day you can sit around and talk Big East hoops, it's a good day, especially this time of year in March,
Say that again. I'm just glad that a lot of the original universities are back in the Big East, starting with us, man. Like,
Right?
See some of those rivalries back.
You got to call Coach Boeheim. Try to get Syracuse back in there, please.
Come on. Like, that's where it's at. Like, I would love to see UConn and Syracuse on the schedule. That's it right there.
Yeah, good times.
Let's jump right in, Caron. I mean, how does a kid that grew up in Racine, Wisconsin, get to Maine, first of all, and then go from Maine to UConn? That seems like a hell of a ride to get to those places. How did that all work out for you?
Well, let me just tell you, that's a great question. It wasn't something that was on the menu or plan. It was something that happened, with the blessing of God, but it was the only opportunity and the real opportunity that I had to have a foreseeable future and also pursue my education. I was a kid, Racine, Wisconsin, got into a lot of trouble at a young age, had a lot of run-ins with the law, and I was, pretty much expelled from all educational programs, Racine Unified, any unified system in the state of Wisconsin. So I had to pursue my education somewhere else. And Max Good, he saw me or heard stories about my game and how I can be an asset to the prep school program. And the opportunity just opened up where a prep school was just like, you know what, he can come here and pursue his education and play the game of basketball. So that's how I landed at MCI.
Great. So you did a year. Was it like post high school or was it like senior year?
So they do have the post grad teams, but I did my junior and senior year there. Only played 2 years in high school in Wisconsin because I had some run-ins with the law. I was away for 2 years. I ended up coming back, and I had 2 years of eligibility, but I couldn't do it there in the States, so I went to prep school and did it.
Wow.
So now you're at Maine, right? And Coach Calhoun, at what point does he start to get involved with your basketball future?
I think that, once I rest his soul, John Thompson, the legend, once John Thompson started coming up and town and the recruitment process started to happen, I think that Coach Calhoun and, other universities got wind of it. They was coming up to see DeMar Johnson. DeMar Johnson was the number one player in the country. I was the number one prep school player in the country. So that was real unique that you had two top national players on the same team. And that's how the recruitment process started. And I fell in love with New England area. I fell in love with the East Coast, and I wanted to be over there for, my collegiate career. And I was looking for someone that can usher me down that path to, be the next one in line, a great, pro. And I felt like Calhoun had the tools to do that.
Who was some of the other schools that you were looking at? Like who did you narrow it down to?
Yeah, so I was looking at St. John's, Georgetown, University of Purdue, and also UNLV. I actually made a commitment to University of Purdue. Gene Katie was there.
Okay.
I remember
him. Yeah, so I was thinking about the the Big East, and then I was thinking about the Big Ten. I was just like, I want to play in one of those conferences because, you know, growing up, it was just that. You know, I always watched Big Ten basketball and Big East basketball. You know, the rivalries and all that stuff was just like near and dear to my heart. You know, watching the Fab Five, you know, Jawan Howard and, you know, Jackson and Rose and all those guys, you know, put on that display of talent. I just wanted to be a part of something unique and that had great tradition.
You know, you have a reputation for being a tough guy, you know, both mentally and physically tough. I know Real Tough Juice is your handle on some of your social media stuff. Did that play into your decision to go to the Big East, the toughness that league represented back then?
Well, you know, one of my mentors, Jamil Aguari, he used to always say, like, you have to go to a school and play in a league that mirror your talents or what you provide. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, so I'm looking at some of these other conferences. You know, the West Coast was always known for like fast-paced basketball, but not like physicality or anything like that. You know, no knock to none of those guys. Great players came out of there, but it wasn't my style of play. And then when I was watching like Big East and Big Ten basketball specifically, it was like more slow down, grind, physicality. They let you play. It was like bumps and bruises. I was like, dang, this where it's at. Like, this where it's at. Like, this me. Like,
I'm home.
Yeah, it feel like, you know, it's like playing at the recreational center, at the park and stuff, you know, like,
yeah.
I was like, man, this is it. Like, this is where I need to be.
When you were getting recruited, what were some of the like because I see you as this, you know, as your role in your position, right? 6'7", but yet play guard, I mean, what was the plan for you? Like, what were the coaches telling you? Listen, you're going to come in and play R3, R4. What were you thinking?
Yeah, you know what? A lot of teams, a lot of coaches was coming in selling me this dream like they do with kids, you know, during the recruitment process. They come with this great presentation. You're going to be the best thing since sliced bread, all this stuff. But, you know, Jim Calhoun just came in and just, you know, said some things that I probably can't even say on this show. But he was just like, I'm going to work. You're going to be part of this family. I'm going to work your tail off. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And that approach was just, it hit home. And then he was just like, for your position, Richard Hamilton, Ray Allen, you know those guys, Donnell Marshall. He was like, and you can be the next one in line in this system and with your versatility. So he was just like, I'm going to put the ball in your hand and I'm going to demand a lot from you. And that was the expectations that I had for myself going into college. I wanted the ball to be in my hand and I wanted to play on the biggest stage.
Well, I think the versatility says a lot, right? So, because I see, you know, following you, especially in the NBA, is that, you know, this versatility, and I think that really helped, you know, boded well for you. Was that something, you know, now through college and then beyond that became, you know, kind of a calling card for you?
Yeah, you know, you just wanted not to just be identified or known for just one thing.
Right? Yeah.
It's crazy that I became more of a scorer in high school and things like that. But growing up, all I wanted to do was rebound. Like, I fell in love with rebounding because I knew I had a great feel and instinct of where the ball was bouncing. So I would just like get the rebound and kick it out and be like, throw it up again. Like, I was just excited about rebounding. And then I had a gift of passing the basketball, like knowing where guys wanted the basketball because I was observing the game. And that's where, you know, that part came. So I was always just trying to add layers to my game. But then I start loving to score the basketball, and that's where the money is, man. So I start putting the ball in the hoop, and I fell in love with it.
You're not kidding.
Got a lot of reasons to like that. Yeah.
So talk about the mental toughness to your game, Caron. I mean, I know that you're a mentally tough guy. Talk about what it takes for a young kid coming where you came from to the East Coast, and what kind of toughness did it take for you mentally to get through the grind of the day-to-day stuff as a student athlete at UConn?
Man, it was extremely tough because, like, we have a vigorous educational system where, like, the curriculum is hard. But I think that and that's a great question. I think to your point, when you come from an environment where I come from, and you understand that, like, your chances are very slim to none to have an opportunity. So when I did get that opportunity, I never took it for granted. I knew that, it was an opportunity of a lifetime to, go to a 4-year college and have a chance to get a free education and play on a large platform. And all the things that I learned in my neighborhood was survival mode. So I was always in survival mode on the basketball court. It was like, it was a mirror image of what I've learned and who I was, playing the game of basketball. I was always in desperation mode. When you talk about now, like the heat culture and, taking no possessions off and always being engaged and sense of urgency, like I was that, then, because I was just playing like my life was on the line, because I literally felt like it was. Because if I had to go back to the conditions of what I was from and, pivot back to that space, I mean, who knows where I'll be. The game really saved my life.
Talk about a little bit about your relationship with Coach Calhoun, because you played 2 years there, had a phenomenal career. You went hardship, right? You went early,
Yeah.
And then Coach he went right back to it, right? D3, right? I mean,
Yeah.
God love him. I just love his passion. I've seen him in a couple coaching clinics. I'm like, this is the guy.
It's
Talk about it.
It's crazy to even think that you can peel him away from the game of basketball. Like, he's just so, like, connected and part of it, and he has been for quite some time. I talked to Coach yesterday, prior to us playing in Orlando, and he was just telling me how proud he was of me. Now, we go through a whole conversation of probably 30, 40 minutes, and he said, "Oh, yeah, by the way, I broke my hip." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I broke my hip. I didn't want to tell you, but I'm better now. And, I'm worried about you. I'm so happy for you." But that's just the way he is and always have been. He's the mentor and the guidance that I always needed. He's somebody that, I can lean upon, and, he just always giving me that positive insight that I need night in and night out whenever I need it.
Was he tough on you guys as a group?
That's an understatement.
Well, that's why I asked.
I'll tell you, like, tough on us, like, you've never heard. So let me just say this. I could not have played for the godfather of the game and Pat Riley if I didn't go to the University of Connecticut, because he prepared me mentally for, like, anything. Like, if I thought I was playing my best basketball, and he always said something that will humble me, or reset me, or created another challenge, like, you get player of the year. He's like, "Well, did you get national player of the year? Did you, like," it was just always something else. Like, he always gave me that other carrot to chase. And, he was always hard on me, but I knew he loved me. So I was able to receive, whatever he gave me, because I knew that he had my best interests.
How about the behind the scenes stuff, Caron? Like, was his door open to you guys? Like, everybody goes through struggles. You were a young player. You played 2 seasons there. Your first year, I'm sure, there was a lot of struggles as a young kid coming into college on your first time on your own, really. MCI, yeah, you were on your own there too, but not like this. Was he nurturing in that kind of way, or was it just all tough love?
Absolutely. He was very nurturing. And it wasn't always like, usually with head coaches in collegiate space, and I've seen it firsthand, they usually shy off those responsibilities to the assistant coaches and other guys, the handlers, like the handlers in certain situations. But, Calhoun was extremely hands-on. If it was problems, and I'll give you an example, I was a father in high school. I had my first child when I was 14 and a half years old. So when I came to the University of Connecticut, I was a father, a seasoned father, and I was always having issues with providing for my daughter, with my Pell Grant that I was receiving. I got a job while I was at Connecticut. And I used to talk to him about, being in my kid life and things like that. And he ushered me down that path of, fatherhood, and my daughter had a devastating accident where she almost lost her life getting off a school bus, where a car went around the stop sign and ran her over.
Oh my
And she was in ICU for quite some time. And I'll never forget our conversations that we had in that moment, in those moments. And they, you know, rallied around, did a collection and sent me home so I could spend time with my daughter. But, you know, Calhoun is, you know, he's more than just a coach. You know, he's part of the fabric of my life.
You know, it's interesting to hear you speak about that and the depth of that. And I see that very common with some of the other guys we spoke to, you know, Gene Smith and, you know, Billy Martin talk about that, John Thompson, that depth of the relationship. Nobody ever talked about being another father, right?
Yeah.
So just talk a little bit about that, because that's a special characteristic that you take with you forever, right?
It really is. And, you know, I was raised by women, you know, strong women. And, you know, the male role models that I had in my life was, you know, they did the best of their ability to kind of usher me down the pathway to be the better version of myself. Not until I came to Connecticut where I bought into like, wow, Calhoun is the closest thing as a father figure I've ever had in my life. You know, so him just teaching me and, you know, talking to me and taking that time to extend himself. And he didn't have to. You know, it wasn't about wins and losses, you know, on the basketball court. I felt like it was about wins and losses in life. I think he was preparing me for life. Still is. Like, what we talk about right now don't show up on the scoreboard nowhere, but it shows up in, you know, my heart. It shows up in our relationship. Like, he's still pouring into me and helping me be a better version of myself night in and night out. And I'm always grateful for that. And I would not be the human being that I am today. I would not be the father that I am today if it wasn't for, you know, his wisdom and his insight.
I want to ask you one more question, kind of on that vein, because you had said that you would like to open a group home and run it when you're done with your playing career. That has to be deeply rooted in some of your past and some of the things you're starting to talk about. So, is that something still on your horizon?
Yeah, well, we actually got a community center back in Racine, Wisconsin.
All right.
And you know, I'm a huge investor in my family Hamilton Group Homes. Back in Racine, Wisconsin. So I'm not physically there, but it's something that I'm invested in because I knew the importance of it in our community.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome, man. That's great.
World changing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I was that to stay on the subject for a minute or so, Caron. Was that under? I mean, obviously, Coach knew about your situation when he was recruiting you. Okay. I mean, was that something that he talked to you about we're going to help you with, you know, different things that you might need as a player and a dad playing at that young age?
I think the biggest sales pitch, and I'm just being 100% honest with you guys, like when all these different colleges came into our household, you know, they all came with like these different sales pitches. And it was like, if you can be bought, you can be sold. So people was coming with like, oh, we can get you this, we can get you that, you know, all these different things. But I wasn't looking for that. You know, if my talents was what I believed and what we know what my talents was, I'll be able to get that for myself. What I need is, you know, people to pour into me and prepare me for those blessings that I'm going to receive in the future. You know, so they don't fall by the wayside and that I don't funnel through it, that I create generational wealth and all those things. And I needed stability from somebody and that guidance. And that's what Calhoun provided. And when he came to me with the proposal of coming to the University of Connecticut, the first thing he talked about was family. And then the second thing he talked about was your education. And then after that, you know, he talked about making sure that I get consistent in certain areas and spaces. And then we talked about basketball. So it was like, I'm talking to you as a human being, as a person, the layers of what you need to get better at. And if you're good mentally, physically, and if you're present in the moment, then we can talk about basketball. This is how you'll be great in this space too. And I was sold. I was like, yo, I'm doing this. I'm going to Connecticut.
Yeah, how could you not be
caught? If you can be bought, you can be sold. That's gonna resonate for a long time.
Yeah.
Tell you.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
It seems that there was a lot of coaches at the, in the Big East. We're a little older than you, Caron, but there was a lot of coaches in the Big East when we talked to the guys from Georgetown. And if you talk to anybody who played for Massimino, the message is pretty close to the same. It's
Carnesecca too.
Carnesecca is another guy. Yeah, it's just it's pretty unbelievable. You think about it, how these guys, and these were all the great coaches from the league, how they all saw that it was the basketball was like the smallest part of the relationship, wouldn't you say?
It really was. It was. If we had to break it up for a visual for anyone in the pie chart, it was probably 10% of
exactly
what's happening. Like, and that's what I loved about it. Whereas other relationships that was, on the verge of happening during the recruitment process, basketball was more than the most important thing and probably 80% of the pie chart. So it was just like, that's what I was not looking for that, because injuries happen and anything happen, and now that derails the projection of my future. And Calhoun was just about all the right things. And I felt it, and it resonated. The messaging resonated with me. It resonated with my mother, my grandmother, and that's why I became a Husky.
So talk about that. Now let's talk about the Huskies. Let's get a little bit into the Big East. What were some of your favorite moments or opponents, arenas? Just talk a little bit about your time in the Big East.
Yeah, you know what? So one of my favorite moments, like outside of myself, was Tate, hitting that huge shot. And that's the visual that we got the second we walked into Gamble Arena, where the ball was tossed the length of the floor. Tate got the basketball, turned around, hit the shot. We also recall like Khalid Al-Amin going into Pittsburgh, and they chanting all this crazy stuff about him, and he's just knocking down shots left and right, and he jumps on the scorer's table, after the game. That was an electrifying moment. Ray Allen, huge shot versus Georgetown, hanging in the air, didn't know whether he was going to pass it or shoot it, and he had enough athletic ability to hang and knock down that shot. You think about, the rivalries with, Allen Iverson in Georgetown. You think about Syracuse, and now Villanova is taking the reins, in the mid '90s, where they start, rolling in the right direction. So it's just like, it's so much history. But my personal favorite moment, is being in the Garden, biggest stage, and being able to, have all eyes on you and the stage set, and you be able to deliver. I think that's every player's dream, and that's a moment that you just hope and wish for as a kid. You know how you're doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're preparing as a kid, and all of a sudden you're in that moment in the Garden, the biggest stage, the crowd going crazy, and I was able to walk away with the MVP of the Big East tournament. I just thought that was like the biggest moment, but that was a vision that I had set out for myself the second I signed to the University of Connecticut. I was like, I want to win a Big East title. I want to be the MVP. I want to be an All-American. Like, those was like my checklist, and I was obsessed with obtaining that and making that happen.
Now that game, right? We could talk about the year, your freshman year, where you guys got disappointed in the Big East against Syracuse. Just a coincidence, by the way.
Yeah.
So, no, just a little coincidence. So then did that propel you a little bit? Like, because you didn't get where you wanted to, but then you guys came back on fire your second time around, right?
It really did. Like, I think you can learn a lot from, people call them losses. I call them lessons. There's a lot of lessons in, not being able to reach your goals. And that's part of the marathon. So I took that into the off season, and then I was able to play on the Olympic team. Mm-hmm. Boeheim was actually my coach on the Olympic team. So I spent a lot of time with him, and he was just, high praise. Like, you better than what I thought you were. And even though him and Calhoun are like super competitive, like they got a lot of history, they're like the best of friends, so they got a great deal of respect for each other. So he was like, I'm talking to Calhoun every day. I told, and I'm like, oh man. So I got a lot of respect from Boeheim. He was like, man, you might have me come out the zone or have to have blitz or something because of all the stuff that you do on the basketball court. And I was just like, man, that's the ultimate respect. But to your point, losing that game at the end of the year and then coming back the following year, I just felt like I had to be better. I had to be more prepared. But you only go that you have to go through something to know that. You can't just do it. You have to go through it. You got to go through the hardships.
I was at a coaching clinic. I just got to tell you this because it goes right to what you were just talking about. Boeheim was talking on the 2-3 zone, and then Coach Calhoun was talking. He was right after him. So Boeheim goes through his thing. He gets done, and it's a packed house. I think it was at St. Benedict's in Newark. He gets done, and then Calhoun comes up and says, "Yeah, you guys like that zone? 5 minutes. I'm gonna tell you how to tear it up." And he comes out, and he did a couple things, and he was like, "That's all we did. Hell with that zone. Let's talk basketball." It was cool. Priceless.
That's awesome.
Oh snap!
So now talk about, some of you, that we went through the Big East a little bit, and now talk about how you made the decision to leave early. Obviously now you had a family already. I'm sure that factored in. What else factored into your mind? And did you have a conversation with Calhoun, and how did that go to decide that you wanted to get out early?
So it's crazy. I did have a conversation with Coach at the end of my first year, right? I thought I was ready, still wet behind the ears. I thought I was ready. I said, they saying that I'm a first-round pick. He said, who is they?
Yeah.
Like people saying like it's projected drafts out there. So he said, you're not a first-round pick. I'm telling you. If my sources tell me that you was first-round pick, I would let you go. He was like, you're not ready yet, son. And I was thinking about like the financials of my family and my daughter, as you touched on. But then I was also thinking about I just want to be as prepared as possible, and I felt like I wasn't. And I trusted his judgment, as I always will and always would. And I came back another year, and at the end of that year, going into the tournament, he just told me like, I never forget this, at the Madison Square Garden, he was just like, man, it's crazy. It's your last time, playing in here as a collegiate player. And I like looked at him like,
he said that.
Coach.
He said that to you.
He's hugging me, and I got the trophy. I got the MVP trophy, and I got the Big East trophy.
That's awesome.
And he was like, "Whoa, I'm so proud of you. It's your last time playing here as a collegiate player." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "You ready?" And I feel like that poured life into me during our NCAA run, because during the tournament I was just out of body. Like I was just playing my best basketball ever because what he gave me. Like he gave me more life during that run. But yeah, man, he really gave it to me. I hope I answered your question. I got lost in my thoughts.
That's perfect.
Crazy.
Who were some of the toughest players that you faced on the Big East?
Oh wow, Mon Shumpert, not Mon Shumpert, but Preston Shumpert. He was special. Troy Murphy, kid from Boston College, Troy Bell. He was really good. It was in the Big East. There's so many guys. I felt like we had a lot of our guys on our team, but you had Kevin Braswell, Georgetown, you had Wesley Wilson. And there's a lot of heads. Like Ron Artest, St. John's.
St. John's, yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot of guys out there. You had Darius Rice. You had University of Miami. Yeah, we had some tough matchups, man. Every night though, it was somebody, and it probably wasn't always like the one individual that you had to play. I'm talking about it was just like the teams were just so good, and the way that they played. Like when we talk about culture, they had a certain thing and a toughness about them, and they played with their school pride. So going to Syracuse, you just knew like it's gonna be hell to get a win, in the dome. Like you don't come in there and leave easy. I don't care if you're up 15-20. Calhoun used to always say, like in the huddles, keep your foot on the gas, keep your foot on the gas, because they're gonna come back. the zone, and they play hard, they work hard, and they're well coached. They're not going to go away, and that's what always happens. You be up 17, and now it's a 2-point basketball game. You do it the same thing with Notre Dame or whoever. Like it's the same vibe, same environment, because it's just the intensity of the game and the style of the way that it was played. You can turn rather quickly.
How are you set for time, Caron? We have a couple more minutes, or are we getting close to? Okay. So all right. So we talked about the different teams. You talked about the different players. Overall, your experience playing in the Big East, it prepared you for the next level, I'm assuming, right? And then what lessons did you take that you learned from Calhoun and from the Big East play to the NBA?
I just think, preparation, being consistent. But, preparation is so key. Like even now, like we're preparing tomorrow for a game that we have. And we don't look at records. We just look at the opponent and how do you prepare to give your best shot realistically to beat this team. And that's what the Big East prepared me for. Calhoun was like that, have the same mentality, the same disposition, and also your work ethic. It's more about you than your opponent. And I learned that at the University of Connecticut. It's always about what can we get better at? How can we remain consistent? And, being a better version of you, and make sure it's always about the team. And those are some of the things that I took from, the Big East preparation and being at the University of Connecticut and preparing for so many great universities and organizations. And I took it into my life, and I also took it into, my second act, and being, on a professional level.
So when you decide that you're going to go, you talked to Coach Calhoun, and Coach Calhoun, it sounds like he told you you're going. How did the whole draft thing fall out? Because you're right, there's a lot of projections. How did that go down for you?
Well, I talked to Coach, and he was just like, it's time for you to go. And then I also was looking at where did I stack up across the board. And I did see that there was a lot of guys out there. So, you got to go through this draft process. You got to go work out against some of the top tier guys who were, play the same position. And I eventually found out that, I was going to land somewhere between, 1 to 15. So that's definitely lottery. And Miami was an organization I didn't even work out for. I thought that I wasn't going to be gone off the board by the time that the Heat had their pick at the number 10 pick. But, granted, a lot of teams passed on me. Godfather of the game identified my talent and took a chance on me that changed my life forever. And I was grateful to Miami Heat, Pat Riley, and the Everson family for taking that chance. Because I felt like I learned a lot of things in college under the tutelage of, Coach Calhoun, but what you learn from a professional level in Miami, you can apply to your life. You can take it with you wherever you go. And man, it's been so rewarding. And now I'm able to help others.
What were some of the things that Coach Riley taught or instilled or colored in some of the background that Coach Calhoun started, right? So you're kind of your foundation. Now you're with that organization with Riley. What were some of the things that he brought to you?
Even more so like the detail and the preparation. And then, accountability. Letting like, no matter what, like if you're part of this change or you're part of this link, like you have to be strong because this doesn't work unless this works. And once you really buy into that and understand that, it speaks volumes. And I learned that in life. I learned how to be a champion way before I was a champion, here in Miami. And that I'm forever grateful for that. And now we're able to mentor and pour into, the next wave of talent and, future champions and future coaches and future mentors or whatever capacity.
Take us through the process when you're in that war room, and everybody's sitting around and you're waiting your turn. I'm sure you have discussed some things with different teams. So people have told you if you're available at this, we might go here or you might go there. What's that like, waiting to see and hear your name get called so you can go up and shake the commissioner's hand?
It's tough, man. I sat over there on the side because I got like 3 commitments on. I got 2 commitments the day before draft. I got a commitment on draft day, and none of those teams picked me.
Wow.
So that was tough because I was sitting there thinking that I would be off the board, as I touched on earlier, and I wasn't off the board. And I was getting nervous. I was like, man, what's going on here? And my agent was just like, it's going to work out. You're going to go where you need to go and where you should be. Because like I tell guys right now, when you go through the trade process or anything like that, you're traded because you got value. So you're going somewhere where an organization is going to use you because they see the strength and the gifts that you have. So me not getting drafted, this means that other organizations didn't see the value. They saw some value, but they saw others a little more value. And this organization specifically saw me as the valued and the best player, and they took me.
Does that fuel you when you start your freshman year, your rookie year? Was there a situation, and I'm not asking you to name names, it was like somebody got drafted ahead and you go, oh no, that's not good. When I play this guy, I'm really going to take it to him? Or, did that fuel you to be a better player by where you got selected?
Absolutely. I said it on draft night. I said, I'm going to make everybody pay that pass them immediately. I said it on draft night, and, I was like, I'm better than him. I'm better than him. I went like 1 through 8. I was just like, I'm better than all of them. And I felt that way. And, after all the history is done and made, I still feel that way. You know what I mean? So, like, you had to go out there and prove it. And I did that through, my sweat equity. Like, I put a lot of work in to show that night in and night out. And that was the chip on my shoulder that I needed and that I had. Just always remember that. Whenever I got a little high, that always humbled me and kept me, like, with that edge that all these guys went ahead of me.
I know we're running up against the clock here. So, here's what my last question to you. We'll wrap it up with this. You got a group of underprivileged kids sitting in front of you, okay? You're talking to them. What's your message to these kids in life to be a better person and to be successful in life? Not necessarily the NBA or an NBA coach or player. What do you say to a kid to be successful in life? What's the one thing that you tell all the kids?
Well, I always tell them the 3 Ds, that it's the pillars of my foundation of who I am and what I am and what I'm about. And that's determination, dedication, and discipline. And I feel like with those pillars in your life and with those qualities, you can be anything. I feel like, anything's possible. I feel like seeing is believing. Make sure that you have the proper mentors in your life, because what happens is that a lot of people, lack guidance, and everyone needs someone. And I've been able to excel in life because of, the mentors that I've had in my life, people that have poured into me to help me and usher me down that pathway to be a better version of myself. So one, just stay true to the pillars: determination, dedication, and discipline. And also get you some mentors that can pour into you and help usher you down that path.
And that's a perfect way to end it. And Caron, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much we enjoyed talking to you today. Learned a lot about you, man. We had a good time. I hope you did too.
Likewise.
And thanks so much for coming out to the Big East Rewind.
A lot of depth to it. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
So as always, folks, this has been the Big East Rewind with Chuck Everson and Sonny Spera. The Big East Rewind was produced and directed by Nick Chico Chorus and Daryl Gurney. You can check us out on YouTube. In the link, put in Big East Rewind, and you'll see all our episodes. You can also catch us on Spotify and everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you have any comments or suggestions for the show, how we can get better, you can contact us at bigeastrewind@gmail.com. Thanks a lot and have a great night.
Peace out.